Welcome to the Chapel Thrill Podcast with Hunter Caparelli and JJ Jones.
What is up, Tar Heel Nation, and welcome to the very first episode of the Chapel Thrill Pod. We're home for all things Carolina basketball. I'm Hunter Caparelli, joined by my co-host and former UNC football wide receiver, JJ Jones. We're going to be breaking down the heels from the season tip-off, tournament time, stories, stats, everything in between. This first episode is a little bit of a trial run, but we're really going to try to look over the offseason and preview this upcoming season and fully dive into this 2025-26 UNC Hoop squad. JJ, how we doing?
Doing good, man. Excited to come on here and talk about some UNC basketball. Growing up a Duke fan, unfortunately, I've been able to switch tides and be a UNC basketball fan for the past few years. Excited to dive into this team and talk a lot more about these Hoop squad.
I love it. I thought I'd give ourselves like an opportunity to maybe share a little bit about our backgrounds and kind of the sport media field for our audience. So myself, went to UNC for undergrad. I'm currently now at Syracuse getting my master's in sports broadcasting. But while I was at UNC, I wrote for the newspaper, the DTH on the sports beat. I was a WBNG TV sports news reporting intern summer ago, covering all things Binghamton sports, so kind of middle of nowhere of New York, but that was pretty fun. Also, while I was at UNC, I was a production assistant for Go Heels. I did a lot of behind the scenes work, and I was also a sideline reporter for our ACC Network Extra women's soccer, women's basketball teams. And then last spring, I was also a studio production intern for SEC Network in Charlotte. I got to work on shows like Paul Feinbaum, SEC Now, Rally Cap. So that was super awesome. Now currently at Syracuse, still working as a sideline reporter, studio host and analyst for our ACC Network Extra. I've done work with our field hockey team primarily this fall. I'm going to be doing stuff with the men and women's basketball teams in this winter, but still very much tapped into UNC basketball. I've been very tapped into college basketball as a whole my entire life, and really excited for this season. JJ, what about you?
In terms of media, I started off at UNC for being in Sports Extra. It's kind of like a sports center segment for
Yes.
students at UNC. My first semester there, I was just a guest appearance guy. I came in talking about football here and there. But, I kind of had a love for sports broadcasting growing up, watching College Game Day, listening to guys like Gus Johnson. And it just sparked something to me that was like, I love playing the game, but I also love talking about the game. So I ended up going to UNC playing football there. But in my meantime, got my undergrad in media and journalism. That was my degree at UNC. Like I said, did Sports Extra, was an anchor there, did some analysts for women's basketball, men's basketball, did soccer, lacrosse, all the sports you can think of. And at the end of the day, I know I'm still playing football right now, but becoming a sports broadcaster or just doing stuff like this, being able to talk about sports just because it's something I've always wanted to do and lived by pretty much my whole life is that's kind of the end goal. And I'm just here with my guy Hunter. We had classes together at
Yeah.
UNC.
We both took Sports Extra. That was pretty fun
Exactly.
under Dr. T. I was at one of their shows actually 2 weekends ago when I was down in Chapel Hill. We had a fall break. So I was able to check out one of the shows, and they're still keeping a high level. So
That's good.
love what
That's
Dr.
good.
T's doing.
Yeah, shout out to Dr. T, man. Does a lot for the UNC, a lot for the UNC students, man.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, I thought we'd get right into it. For UNC fans who might have kind of put everything aside after the tournament loss and maybe were kind of waiting until the new season approached, maybe they weren't as tapped in over the offseason. We thought we'd give you a little recap, kind of get you caught up. So obviously, we went into the tournament. We arguably could have maybe got in, may have not got in. We snuck in as an 11th seed. We won our playing game, but then fell to Ole Miss, the 6th seed, 71-64 at the end of the season. That ended our season at 23-14. We fell to 34-3 all time in the round of 64 for the March Madness tournament. Going into this year, it'll be Hubert Davis's fifth year at the helm of the team. his 14th year on the staff. So he was an assistant for a bunch of years and now fifth year as a head coach. And his win over Wake Forest in the ACC quarterfinals was his 100th as a head coach and became the third fastest to 100 wins in UNC history and sixth fastest in ACC history. JJ, what are your thoughts on Hubert going into his fifth year as the UNC basketball head coach?
I really think Hubert is a great coach. I think he's kind of set an expectation for himself as kind of championship or bust at this point. When you think of his first year coming in, he brings his team all the way to the Final Four and all the way to the national championship game as well. Unfortunately, they lose to Kansas, but when you set that expectation so early in your career, it's kind of hard to live up to those expectations. In the past few years, um, can reach back to I don't know what year it was, might have been 2023, even making the tournament. Am I right?
Mm.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
it's like things
yeah.
like that. You have those expectations, but I think this, UNC built guys who have been there for 3 or 4 years outside of Seth Trimble. And I mean, just major minute
Right.
contributors. So I think Hubert Davis did a good job going into the portal this offseason and just kind of rebranding this UNC team.
100%. You had Drake Powell, he's drafted by the Nets, and you have a bunch of guys transfer out. Van Allen Lubin, he goes to NC State, which I know some UNC fans were a little salty about. You lose three players who didn't have any eligibility left with RJ Davis, Jalen Withers, Ty Claude, and then four others enter the portal. Elliot Cadeau, he goes to Michigan. Jalen Washington goes to Vanderbilt. Ian Jackson, who I know a lot of UNC fans were disappointed about leaving, he goes to St. John's back to New York and Cade Tyson goes to Minnesota. So they're all guys who would transfer out from last season. So only three scholarship returnees. We have three returnees. It's senior Seth Trimble, who started 18 games, sophomore James Brown, who played 18 games last year, and then sophomore Zayden High, who redshirted. So a lot of turnover, a lot of guys who transferred out. But then, like you said, Hubert did definitely reshape this roster and bring a lot of guys in, which was I was super
I think the
interested
biggest thing
about
he did in terms of this portal class, yeah, I think he brought size to this new team. You look at
for
the
sure.
guys he brought in. Yeah, average 6'10" in terms of height. You have how do I say Henry Vasar,
Henry Vasar.
7 foot junior, so your depth to the squad, and then you bring in guys like Jaron Stevenson. Add a lot of size to this roster, and that's kind of something that they didn't have in the past. And in terms of just looking at their big men play, you would go into these games and they kind of would play really shaky down low in the post and, kind of get bullied here and there in terms of the guard play was always good. But I'm glad that Coach Davis went into the portal this year and decided to get some true big men for this team.
You mentioned the bigs. I'm super excited about the bigs, specifically Caleb Wilson, the five-star recruit. He's highly touted. He was a top 10 recruit coming in, and I think he's going to be the face of this team this year. Everyone apparently loves him on campus, even as a freshman coming in. He's super active on social media, super active with the students on campus. So I'm really excited for him. He's a stretch 4, 5. He could shoot the ball from outside. He could drive. He could post up. He could rebound. He could defend. Hubert, I mean, he's spoke very highly about him. He could really do everything, and he's really complimented in the portal around him. Like you said, they bring in Vasar from Arizona. They bring in a couple wings, Jonathan Powell from West Virginia. They bring in Luka Bogovac, I think is how you pronounce his last name, the international, who we're still waiting on. They're figuring out some eligibility with not eligibility, but kind of their transcript stuff. He comes over and that he didn't play in the exhibition against BYU from last week. So they're kind of trying to figure out how they could get him ready for the tip off. But they bring him in. They bring in, like you said, Jaron Stevenson from Alabama. So I think they've really complimented this roster on Hubert Davis's part. I'm really excited to see how they look going into the beginning of play. I watched their blue-white scrimmage from a few weeks ago. My biggest takeaway from that was how many more pieces that they have on this squad from last year, like the depth to kind of, I mean, they were basically able to fill like two quality teams on blue and white, going up and down. I think both sides they show, like you said, they show off size. They're able to show like
Hmm.
occasional outside shooting ability and versatility. I think Hubert's going to have like multiple options at his disposal to defend opponents as well as create offense. What do you think?
Yeah, like you said, and like last year, it seemed like they didn't have the depth they needed. You had a good first seven guys. Once you get into the eight, nine guy role, you kind of took a step back, and a lot of teams took advantage of that. And looking at the exhibition game against BYU, being able to see them play against the number one prospect high school and AJ at BYU. I think they played really, really well, honestly. And I liked how Caleb Wilson played. He had 22 points, 10
Mhm.
rebounds. Being a true freshman in a game like that, I know it doesn't really count, but it kind of gave UNC fans a preview of what he can do this year and what he can do this season. Caleb, you got to give a lot of credit to Seth. He's taken a major leap in terms of the gameplay. He's starting to shoot the ball a lot more. You can tell he's more confident in the, beyond the arc shot. But, I'm excited to see Seth this year and see how he really progressed through the offseason. Everybody at UNC loves him to death, but I expect
100%.
him to have a really, really big role this year.
I 100% agree. That BYU game was super interesting. I watched that Friday night. It was on ESPN Plus. I think there were a lot of good takeaways, a lot of good and a lot of bad for a team that, was really kind of just meshed together. Like it was their real kind of first game all playing together. I think they do have to like improve on defending without fouling. We had a bunch of
Yeah.
fouls. BYU was, I think, in the bonus midway through the first and second halves. BYU got 19 free throws out of 26. So when you lose a 2 point game, giving up 26 free throw attempts,
Those free throws
definitely
count.
want to improve that. Free throws are going to count. I think
Yeah.
they do have to do a better job on the defensive glass. BYU in that exhibition, they got 18 offensive rebounds off 38 missed field goals. That's nearly about half the missed shots they were getting the offensive rebound. Carolina, they did do a good job getting offensive boards. They grabbed
Yeah.
16 of them. Vasar, who we mentioned before from Arizona, he got 6 offensive rebounds, and Caleb Wilson got 4. So we did pretty well on the offensive glass. Just need to improve on the defensive glass, really boxing out and getting those rebounds. What do you think about that?
Also, I mean, they had 19 turnovers in that game. When you have 19
Yeah.
turnovers, you could play Little League basketball. You can't win games with 19 turnovers. So, like I said, the size helps them. The guards kind of like it's their first game together. I understand exhibition
Right.
game, but I still need to see somewhat a little bit more improvement from these guards. But like I said, for the
Mhm.
size that they have, the big men, I think they have a lot of great depth between the bigs. But it's like I said, it was only the first game, just an
Right.
exhibition. But I'm really, really excited to see for their first upcoming game.
Speaking of the guards, they bring in Kyan Evans from Colorado State. It's looking like he's going to be the starting point guard for the Heels. Going and looking at that exhibition game, he had a slow start in the first half, kind of improved in the second half with more steady play. I think that's how Carolina got to creating more tempo in the second half. It was off Kyan Evans. The Heels converted 12 fast break points in the final 20 minutes after getting just 5 in the first half. So I think Carolina's guards did a great job of playing with their heads up in that exhibition. And they also create a lot of chances with steals. That's a lot on the guards. They shot 52% in the second half and out rebounded BYU overall 48 to 38 in the game. But like you mentioned before, sloppy offensive possessions that resulted in 19 turnovers overall. I think if they kind of improve the turnovers, get cleaner possessions, I think that's just going to come with chemistry, playing with one another more as the season
Yeah.
progresses. That's going to improve. What do you think?
I mean, yeah, so many new faces. It's like they're kind of going out there and playing pickup. I mean, a lot of these guys just got here in the summer or got here in February, so it's been a very, very small amount of time for these guys to go out there and make plays together. So, like, it's only so early in the season. I think as we go further along this stretch, I think it'll be good for them. And I think the greatest part is just the matchups they have early on in the season.
Totally. And it's definitely a pivotal season for Hubert in Chapel Hill. There's certainly some, personnel questions entering the campaign, but I think there's definitely a collection of intrigue and talent. You have Caleb Wilson, the 5 star. You bring in these transfers like Vasar up front with the international pickup with Luca and Trimble returning as the fan favorite. The point guard situation that will be resolved. Kyan Evans has experience, and you have freshman Derek Dixon, a top 50 recruit who looked really good in that exhibition game. And North Carolina's admission to the tournament last year created a lot of controversy. I don't think there's going to be a lot of controversy going into this year. I think they're going to really make a name for themselves going into March.
Yeah, especially just with this team now. I'm really, like I said, I'm really excited to see them play. But Here, 1 second. I'm sorry. I'm looking at the
There you
rest of
go.
their basketball schedule.
Yeah, the schedule is intriguing. They play they have a lot of big non-conference games early in the season. Their second game of the season play Kansas at home. That was off a home and home agreement with Kansas. They played at Kansas last year. Tough, close loss there. And then they play at home against them this year. Kansas, they have Darren Peterson, potential number one overall pick for the 2026 NBA draft. He's going to be one of the best players in the country. So super excited to see how that game plays out. And then in the ACC SEC showdown, UNC plays at Kentucky on December 2nd. That's going to be a really good game. Mark Pope really rebuilding and revamped that Kentucky squad. So I'm excited for that Kansas matchup and excited for that Kentucky matchup. What about those?
Yeah, just looking at this schedule, I mean, I know they start off with Central Arkansas, which should be just an easy kind of like exhibition game to get these
Right.
guys warmed up, and then straight into Kansas. I'm glad it's at home because when
Hmm.
you play at Kansas at Allen Fieldhouse, it's probably the
It's tough.
greatest basketball college arena ever. You know what I'm saying? Like in terms of like
Uh-huh.
stadium pulse, it's at a 10. Like
It's out of 10.
you go there, you're always gonna feel it. So I'm glad they're playing at home. I'm just worried because this Kansas dynasty has always been very, very good. And you look at this Kansas team this year, they have a lot of pieces coming back.
Hmm.
And it's UNC's only second game after they play Central Arkansas. It's kind of like it's a warm-up game, but then you get into the real gritty, the Kansas Jayhawks.
Hmm.
But it's who knows how they go out there and play. I just really, really expect Caleb Wilson to kind of be that guy already by this second game. Just by how he carries himself and how he's played. He just looks like the kind of guy where he's like, coach, I want to learn. I want to be that guy. If somebody wants to go score, you give me the ball, I'll go do that for you.
I completely agree. I think he showed that in the game against BYU, and I think he's going to have plenty of chances to show that in these huge non-conference games. And as we get into the ACC play, I think the ACC, looking at it briefly, it's very top heavy. You have Duke, you have Louisville, you have NC State, and then you have Carolina, the four teams ranked in the preseason AP Top 25 poll. Out of Duke, Louisville, and NC State, which one of those three teams do you think has the biggest threat to UNC's ACC title hopes going into conference play?
Oh, Duke, by far.
Hmm.
Absolutely. You look at Carlos Boozer's both of his son is, but
Hmm.
I know
Yep.
he's probably the number one. I know he's the number one ranked freshman in the ACC right now, and arguably it's correct just the way he plays. He's definitely gonna be a one and done kind of guy. But Duke has kind of established himself as the blue blood in the ACC the
Hmm.
past 2 years. I think the new head coach has just kind of built this program into continuing Coach K's legacy. And I think that these guys are always going to have a chip on their shoulder. They always think that these teams are going to doubt Duke every year because they think they're soft. But I think Duke ends up probably winning the ACC again this year. But I also hope that UNC continues to beat them, especially when we play them, so a lot of our fans can still rush Franklin Street.
100%. I know my senior year last year, they swept us, so I didn't have a chance to rush either of those years. Cooper Flag was definitely a big part of that. He kind of
Yeah.
owned us last year, but I'm really hoping we can get our get back this year, at least claim one, if not both of those games. I do think Duke can be really good. Louisville definitely reloaded. They brought in a huge transfer class. I think they're going to be really good. NC State, they brought in a few transfers as well. They have a new head coach and I think they're going to be really good. But again, I think UNC they have a really good chance to make their name known this year, and I think that starts with Caleb Wilson. Like you said before, I mean he's going to be one of the best players on the team. He's going to be one of the best freshmen in the country and among the most productive players in the ACC. I think he's going to take pressure off the Tar Heel role players. I think Hubert's going to give Caleb, who's a two-way player, tremendous open court ability, every chance to produce. And I also think Vasar is a potential breakout candidate as the big man. I guess out of all the guys on the roster, if you had to pick one player, maybe outside of Caleb, who would be your breakout player for November?
I mean, there's so many new pieces this year. You could really just like put a name and pick it out of a bucket, and that guy could
Mhm.
probably perform. But I'm happy I'm about to go with the fan favorite Seth year in terms of just progress, progress, progress. This is the year that he shows everybody that he's continued to work in the offseason. And like I said before, he's kind of the catalyst for this team in terms of leadership. He's been around the program. He knows how the UNC standard is for this basketball team. So you have all these transfers coming in. It's hard to kind of mesh these guys together unless you kind of have a breakout player in terms of stats. I don't know. It might not be him, but I think he's going to be the guy that you need in stretch time to have that leadership. Okay, he's going to come up with the clutch offensive rebound, clutch block. He's going to be there. He's going to be that guy for the team heading, especially in November.
I completely agree. Trimble, he lost his starting role last year after sitting out. He had was sat out multiple games because of an injury. I think he never really found that consistent rhythm again once he returned. But, he was a 42% three-point shooter in 2023. He's going to get plenty of like open looks this year with a lot of the attention on Caleb Wilson. I think a lot of what happened with last year, not having enough size down low, teams were able to defend more on the perimeter. And as a result, we weren't really able to get open looks from the 3-point line. So I think this year, with more size down low, our wing players and our guards are going to be able to get the ball down low. Opponents are going to have to really collapse, and then they'll be able to kick it out for a lot of open 3-point looks. And I think that starts with Trimble. And I think that'll move out to Kyan Evans, who was a
Yeah.
great 3-point shooter at Colorado State. Looking at his stats, he averaged about 11 points last year, but he was a really good 3-point shooter. And then Jonathan Powell from West Virginia, he was productive for the Mountaineers. He started in all 23 games for them.
Yes.
Average 8 points, 36% from 3 point. So we're gonna have a lot of players who are gonna be able to shoot the three this year. I think it's gonna start with those big guys down low, taking the pressure off the guards and the wings from outside, and getting those 3-point open looks.
He's that kind of wing and D3 kind of guy that we needed for this team this year. Like you said, he put some solid minutes up for West Virginia last year, but I think he comes in. He's not a headliner name like in terms of transfers and like they saw and you have the freshman Caleb Wilson. He's kind of one of those guys who's under the radar. He's going to come in. He's probably going to give you a smooth. He's going to average maybe 11 points per game. It's going to be real smooth. He's going to hit two threes a game. I believe it. I've seen him play before,
Hmm.
but I think he's guy that we need. And one of our, again, another guy with size, like Hubert, kind of that's his emphasis this season is having size on this team. And I think he's gonna be a great addition for these guys.
I completely agree. And you also look at Bogovats, the international pickup.
Mm,
He might be our starting three. I think he was a huge
yeah.
key get for the Heels that we got deep in the spring. Hubert was desperately looking for kind of that perimeter 3 and D player after Drake said he was staying in the draft. He Bogovats, he turned 22 last month, so he's older. He has a lot of experience. Internationally, he was averaging 15 points and shot nearly 40% from three in the Adriatic League. So I think that was a huge get for the Heels. Obviously, he didn't play in the exhibition against BYU. They're trying to figure out like academic stuff with him. But I think once he's cleared and
Yeah,
ready to
compliance,
go,
like a bunch of
yeah,
compliance. Yeah, compliance
yeah,
and eligibility issues.
yeah.
Trust, I know how it is.
Yeah. So I think once they figure that out and they get him in the lineup, I think that starting lineup of Kyan Evans, Trimble, Bogovats, Wilson, and Vasart, there aren't going to be a lot of starting fives out in the nation. There are going to be a few that will be able to contend, but I don't think that many. And with that starting five, you add the depth. I think we have the potential to really break out and cause some havoc in the ACC and the country as a whole. So
With Bognavat. You know how the stereotype is slow paced kind of game, but when you have him over now in the States playing in the ACC is always very a fast paced conference. That's the only thing I'm worried about is will he be able to adapt to this game speed? Because now it's hard for a lot of these international guys to come over here and just pick up the game right away because it's
right.
two completely different games. There's different rules, the way that the game's played, the game speed. But I think from how he plays, he's kind of the perfect pick and place guy to put in and he's ready for that role immediately. Not a lot of guys are able to come in and just adapt to it, but the way he plays kind of fits the offense that Coach Hubert Davis likes to run.
I 100% agree. I think looking at, potential breakout players, I look at him. I look at Vasar, he'll be our starting center going into the season. I think if he plays like the way he did over the second half of last year with Arizona, I think the Heels will definitely, do better this year with defensive and offensive rebounding. Vasar hit double figures in 7 of the last 8 games this past February with Arizona, and he helped turn their season around. I think with his size and his ability to stretch opposing defenses, which I think he'll really be able to do this year with UNC. I don't really think we were able to get that from last year's squad. Van Allen Lubin was a solid big down low, but he was kind of shorter. He was 6'9". Vasar is about 7 foot. So you bring in a center who's a lot taller, a lot bigger, who will really be able to take the attention off defenses, off the perimeter. I think he'll definitely contribute to higher percentages down low as well as 3-point percentages outside.
Mhm. Like I said, I really do like Baystar this year. I mean,
Hmm.
kind of, I think he's kind of a headliner guy I think they kind of have maybe the best duo in the front court with Caleb Wilson and
Yeah.
together in the ACC. I think they might argue.
I mean, the offseason
Mhm.
buzz, coming out of workouts over the summer is, Wilson and Vasar have looked really good together. They've looked extremely sharp in workouts and practices. And apparently, Wilson, like I mentioned before, he's bringing, a personality that really hasn't been seen from a lot of freshmen who have come in. So I'm super excited about that. I'm super excited about how he'll kind of bring that chemistry among, all these new guys coming in that haven't really played together. You have a bunch of transfers. You have a couple of freshmen coming in. We only have 2, 3 guys returning. So I think having a player like Wilson, a freshman who is, so personable, he's going to really build that chemistry early on. I think it's going to be huge for the team when we
Yeah.
have these huge matchups against, a Kansas, a Michigan State, a Kentucky, these huge games in the beginning of the season. Having a player like Caleb who's going to really build that chemistry early on, I think is going to be huge.
Very, very personable.
Mhm.
And you need that when you just it's extremely rare as a freshman and just go to work. But for him, he's like, okay, I'm gonna work, but I want to make this team have some fun. Like he's still a kid. Like he wants to go out there,
Yeah.
he enjoys playing basketball. And you don't see that often. I mean, especially with the past teams in the past few years for UNC, it's kind of always been super serious. There's always been so many expectations, everyone's so doing. He's like, guys, we're UNC basketball. We are a dynasty. Let's go ahead and just play ball and have some fun. And I think that's what we need to see. And I think that's going to trickle down throughout the whole lineup. And you're going to have some of the older guys, kind of gel in with it, mesh with it, and just go out there and have fun. And I'm really excited to see this team this year. Like I said, just go out there, have fun, and just play ball.
Yep, I love it. I love it. I guess as we wrap up a little bit here, I kind of want to look at, a couple bold predictions going into the season with, you know, tip off about a week away. If you had to pick finish for in the ACC and then the AP top 25, where do you think the Heels will land kind of going, I know it's early. I know it's early, but what would be your
Yeah,
bold prediction right now
so
going into the
early.
season?
I gotta see. I, I, I gotta see a lot of these other ACC teams because just every year you
Yeah.
never there's always one team that just comes out and just comes out hot. But I think with this team, their upside, their ceiling for this squad is the number one team in the conference. That is now
Hmm.
their floor, I think, kind of mid-pack ACC. So I'd say probably like a
Yeah.
7 or 8 in the ACC kind of team, in terms of I think they get that only because they don't have the chemistry right away.
Right.
Then you have
I
only
agree.
3 players coming back from the team last year. And it's kind of hard to build that chemistry. If they're not clicking on all cylinders, these ACC teams, they look that we're the conference of basketball. So they're going to go out there and play. But top 25 AP, I think the ceiling for them, maybe 10th. No, I don't think they get
Yeah,
past. I don't think they get past number 10. I think there's a
yeah,
lot of other teams in the nation who have kind of legitimately built themselves to be a top 10 team, and I don't think UNC is able to get that. But hopefully, we get another beautiful UNC tournament run.
yeah. I mean, if we finished at 10 in the AP
What you
top
think?
25, finishing at 10, that would put us at about like a 2-3 seed in the tournament, which I think for Hubert, he would take that any
Two, three,
day.
two. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think he would take that any day. As far as
Yeah, absolutely,
ACC,
absolutely.
and as far as ACC, I think if you're able to finish in that top three, I think with Duke, and Louisville, I think that would be like that's the goal. I think you definitely want to finish ahead of like an NC State, ahead of a
That's a
ahead of
good year.
Clemson. hmm Like I think that's the goal. Obviously,
Hmm.
you have the floor of being like a middle pack ACC team, but again, I know everyone's always talking about those quad one games. I know last year we had a lot of quad one losses. Oh, everyone always talking about
Yeah.
it because that's what the committee looks at for putting and seeding teams in the NCAA tournament. So I know last year we had technically a lot of quad one losses. I think we want to flip the script this year. It's going to be winning some of those early non-con games, beating
Mhm.
potentially a Kansas at home, maybe shocking a Kentucky on the road. We have the Fort Myers tip-off where we play Michigan State, who is always solid year in and year out. We play Ohio State in December. So a bunch of non-con games early on that, you get a couple quad one wins there. There aren't going to be too many quad one opportunities among the ACC. You'll have Duke, you'll have Louisville, you have NC State, but you're not going to have as many opportunities there. So really just capitalizing on those quad one games early on, I think will be huge for building that tournament resume down the stretch.
No, absolutely. I think, like you said earlier, the committee is just, they love the quad one wins. And if UNC can't get the, like they couldn't last year, then that's going to put a biggest emphasis for them this year is win those early quad one wins, those quad one games.
Yeah, I think that game at home against Kansas really early on, I think that's going to really tell us a lot about this team. I'm planning on going down to Chapel Hill for that game. Still looking to see if I can maybe get a ticket. I know I was looking earlier, prices are about like $350 for nosebleeds in the dome for that game. So it's going to be tough. I'm going to have to maybe pull some strings and maybe see how I have a connect that could get me in. But I mean, that's homecoming weekend as well. So I think Tar Heel Nation is definitely going to be rocking that weekend. That's going to be super exciting. And I think that early test on against Bill Self's revamped Kansas squad will tell us a lot about this team.
Mhm. I'm just really, really excited to watch this team this year.
Yeah.
Like, there's just so many new faces. Nobody knows what's going to happen this season. The past few
Yeah.
years you've been able to
Yeah.
kind of understand what's going to happen, and you know who the players are. We don't know who the guys are, so you kind of
Yeah.
have to watch this
A
team.
lot, a lot of the
And it's
casual fans, they don't really know about who's on our
yeah,
team this year. They know
exactly.
they know Trimble. They've heard a little bit about Caleb Wilson, and I think that's about it. So I think
Mhm.
it's going to be super interesting to see like which guys on the team really make a name for themselves, and you know, hopefully, stamp themselves on it in a long, deep tournament run.
No, for sure, for sure.
I know as we kind of close out here, I'm hoping for each of our episodes, we can kind of bring in some, funny, quirky thing we maybe saw in the media. So when I was before our show today, I was, scrolling through Twitter and I saw something pop up my feed that came out of our own company, Field of 68. They were doing top 10 ACE preseason ACC freshman rankings. And, we had some expected, top picks with Cameron Boozer number one and Mikel Brown out of Louisville. He's going to be really good. He's a really good skilled guard at number two. But then you go down and you look at Caleb Wilson. I'll even, put my phone here. Caleb Wilson at number five, all the way down for top 10 freshmen in the ACC. Two names here they put ahead of him were internationals I don't know too much about.
I,
You have Nicholas, I don't want to pronounce his name wrong, Nicholas Avdalis at Virginia Tech and Tice DeRider at Virginia ahead of Caleb Wilson. I don't know, how much people have
no.
watched of those two internationals, but I doubt they're going to have, better seasons than Caleb Wilson. What do you think about that?
Oh, no, absolutely not. And what kind of makes me a little bit more happier is the fact that Caleb Wilson tweeted about it.
He
Some of
tweeted
these guys
about
just
it.
let it happen. He took it to heart. Like
Yeah,
he's upset that they would kind of rank him that low. And for him to tweet that out, that kind of gives me some motivation. Like, okay, now I'm really excited to see what he's going to do.
yeah,
Because now I can see he has that him. He's going to take a lot of those things personally. You're not number five. Easily top three, in my opinion, probably the UNC fans, probably all basketball fans around the world. But
100%.
for him to take it that personal and post that tweet, that's the icing on the cake. Now I know he's going to have a hell of a year.
I mean, he literally said, "Thanks for the motivation." Hashtag new wallpaper. So,
Bingo. That's all I need. That's all
bingo,
I needed to hear. That's all I needed to hear.
100%. Well, I think that's probably going to do it for us here. First episode of the Chapel Throw Pod. UNC Nation, thanks for watching and listening. We'll be back in a few weeks to break down Carolina's first couple games, including, like we mentioned, that massive blue blood showdown and 2022 national championship rematch at home against Kansas.
Man, that
It's
game
going to be a
hurt,
huge
man.
one.
That game hurt.
That championship hurt. I was
Mm.
I was at that game in New Orleans.
You were there?
I was there. I
Oh
was
my
right behind
gosh.
I was right behind the hoop. It was the highs and lows of beating Duke in the
Yeah.
Final Four,
Hmm.
ending Coach K's career, and then losing in the national championship against Kansas. You had a 15-point lead at home.
Still can't get over that. Still cannot get over that.
Can't get over it. But hey, you
Sick.
have you have a chance for maybe a little bit of redemption
Yes,
early on
absolutely.
this year
That's
against
what
the
I need to see.
Jayhawks.
That's exactly what I need to see. I'm excited for that matchup. It's gonna
I
be
love
good.
it. And I know as far as myself and JJ, we both have a lot of connects in the sports media college basketball landscape. So be on the lookout for some maybe highly touted guests to potentially be joining our show later on this season. I won't say any names right now, but we have a few things cooking over here. So
I already got some.
be
I
on the
got some
lookout.
names. I got some names
Uh-huh.
on the list ready to go. So
Be on the lookout. Well, for JJ, I'm Hunter Caparelli. As always, go Heels.
peace.